Afternoon, everybody, and welcome to General Laws. If I could have the clerk open the roll for attendance. All right, clerk, close the roll. A quorum is present, and so the committee will come to order. We got a couple of actions today. The first one up is we have some administrative referrals. So clerk, if you can read off the bills and where they are going to.
We have 5 bills to refer to other committees. House Bill 609 to courts. House Bill 671 to courts. House Bill 731 to county, cities, and towns. House Bill 847 to courts. House Bill 1300 to courts.
Okay. Do I got a motion?
So moved.
Do I got a second? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, thank you very much. All right, first up, Delegate Simon, we've got your report from the Housing and Consumer Protection Subcommittee.
Thank you, Chairman Bulova, members of the committee. The first bill I want to take care of on the subcommittee report before we get to the block of uncontested bills is Delegate Keam's House Bill 574. The subcommittee recommended that that bill be incorporated into House Bill 518, Delegate Bulova's bill, and I would so move.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
All right, this is a voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed. Thank you very much, Delegate Simon.
Okay, and so as we go through the block here, I think, do we have the correct block? Does the clerk have the correct block? Do we need to take one out now for uncontested? We take these up in the block?
You probably should announce what you want to take out of the block.
Okay, so I'm going to take one bill out of the block of uncontested bills, which is House Bill 175, and we'll get that at the end. That's like a Krizek's bill, and we'll come back to that for an amendment. All right, so the following bills were all recommended for reporting by a unanimous vote of the subcommittee, and I will go through and run through what they are and what they do. The first bill in that block was House Bill 174 from Delegate Krizek, which makes changes to the Virginia Residential Property Disclosure Act. Specifically, it adds a itemized disclosure to our residential property disclosure form or buyer beware form, requiring or advising purchasers to exercise whatever due diligence is necessary in accordance with the location of soil conditions and having soil and structural conditions of the property be analyzed by a qualified professional. And again, the recommendation of the committee was that that bill be reported by a vote of 8-0. Next was House Bill 176. This is my bill, which has to do with the Property Owners Association Act and the Virginia Condominium Act's rights of rescission. Those are every contract to sell real estate that's located in a condominium development or in a planned property owners association is required to be accompanied by a residential disclosure statement, which automatically grants to the buyer a 3-day right of rescission. What this bill does is it allows the parties, should they choose to extend that right of rescission up to 4 more days, to a total of 7 days in the contract or in an addendum to the contract. Again, previous under current law, the amount of time you have to rescind is not negotiable. House Bill 518 from Delegate Bulova makes changes to the Residential Property Disclosure Act and expands the things that buyers are advised to do their due diligence about, to include taking whatever due diligence they believe is necessary to conduct a building energy analysis. So that's been included now in the first bullet of our Residential Property Disclosure Act, so the buyers are aware that that's something that they should think about doing at the time they purchase a property. House Bill 519, also from Delegate Bulova, makes amendments to the Virginia Residential Landlord Tenant Act and requires that notices of termination under the Landlord Tenant Act must contain contact information for legal aid when the tenant is receiving assistance through the Federal Housing Choice Voucher Program or through other federal, state, or local programs that are effective. So again, so when we have certain low-income tenants or tenants that are taking advantage of certain programs that may have special rights when they're evicted, advises them on how they can contact legal aid to make sure that they have access to sound legal advice regarding the termination of their lease. House Bill 810, also recommended for reporting 8-0 from Delegate Bourne, makes changes to the Virginia Housing Development, the Virginia Housing Opportunity Tax Credit Program. What it does is it directs the Department of Housing and Community Development and the VHDA to convene a stakeholder advisory group to develop draft legislation to establish a Virginia Housing Opportunity Tax Credit Program for the purpose of providing incentives for the utilization of private equity in the development and construction of affordable housing in the Commonwealth and regulations for implementing such program. So what this bill does is it convenes the working group to come back to us hopefully next year with a legislative fix that will allow us to leverage that private equity and expand this tax program. And it was the recommendation of the subcommittee that report on an 8-0 vote. House Bill 1341 from Delegate Leftwich was a Code Commission recommendation, and there were certain statutes that have to do with manufactured housing and construction that were under this category of laws that are not set out in the code, which is the way we used to handle things in the code. But now that the code's online and a little more flexible, this actually put some of those things back into the code and remove some obsolete provisions relating to the purpose of the chapter and make some technical changes. Again, this is mostly a code cleanup bill regarding manufactured housing and as a recommendation of the Code Commission. The subcommittee recommended reporting by a vote of 8-0. Finally, House Bill 1342 from Delegate Askew, again, makes changes to the Virginia Residential Property Disclosure Act and requires that the Disclosure Act buyer beware statement contain a specific disclosure for buyers of real property to exercise due diligence with regard to the existence of lead pipes in such dwellings, and points them so that, again, prospective buyers, when doing whatever inspections they deem necessary, understand that there's a risk of lead in their drinking water when they have lead pipes, and directs them to start to do some investigation into that matter before they sign their contract and go forward with the purchase of their property. Mr. Chairman, those are the uncontested block of bills, and I would move that the committee accept the recommendation that they be reported on block.
Second.
Great. Thank you, Chairman Simon. Are there any members of the committee who would like to take any piece of legislation out of the block? Okay. Delegate Cole.
All right. I would like to take out, was it House Bill 174, House Bill 518, House Bill 519, and House Bill 810.
Okay, those will be out of the block. Anybody else want to take other ones out of the block? All right, hearing none. Let's see, does the clerk have all that?
No, I'm still moving them. Okay. All right, so that, we move 4 out.
All right, so I think that leaves 176, 1341, and 1342. Okay, hearing no further discussion, if everybody can indicate their vote on the electronic voting machine. All right, clerk will close the roll. Those report out 22-0. All right, so then we got the ones that were taken out of the block. So we have House Bill 174 from Krizek. Is there anybody on the committee that wants to speak to that measure? Okay, hearing none. Then clerk, open the voting roll. All right, close the roll. That bill votes out 22-0. All right, next will be House Bill 518. Does any member of the committee wish to speak to that? All right, hearing none. Clerk, open the roll. All right, close the roll. That bill reports out 21-1. Next, House Bill 519. Does anybody want to speak to 519? Hearing none, clerk, open the roll. All right, clerk, close the roll. That bill reports out 21-1. and then we got House Bill 810. Anybody want to speak to 810? Hearing none. Clerk, open the roll. All right, clerk, close the roll. That bill reports out 20-1. All right.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I apologize. Mr. Chairman, having voted on the prevailing side, I forgot to move the amendments and substitutes to these, and it's my first time, and you told me not to forget, and I forgot. So that being the case, I think we need to reconsider the vote by which we recommended reporting House Bill 1342 so that we can adopt the committee substitute on that one.
All right. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All is opposed. All right. House Bill 1342 is before us. You want to move the amendment?
Mr. Chairman, I move the committee substitute. The committee substitute did very briefly was that this disclosure was in a different part of the Disclosure Act, along with defective Chinese drywall and some other things. What we did is we took that out and moved it into the Property Disclosure Act form, the buyer beware form, and so I would move the substitute.
Second.
Okay. All right. Any discussion on the substitute? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All is opposed. All right. House Bill 1342 is before us in the nature of a substitute. Clerk, open the roll. All right. Clerk, close the roll. That bill reports out with a substitute on a vote of 22-0.
Mr.
Right.
Chairman?
Yes.
So
Simon.
I move that having voted on the prevailing side, I move that the committee reconsider the vote by which we adopted House Bills 518 and 519. Can I do that both together in one motion?
Yep. Yes. Is there a second to that?
Second.
All right. There's a motion to reconsider the vote by which we passed House Bill 518 and 519. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed? All right. House Bill 518 and 519 are before the committee.
And Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chairman, I would move that the committee adopt the committee substitute for both, well, for 518.
Okay. Let's take those separately. So there's been a motion to adopt the substitute for 518. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. All right. 518 as substitute is before us. Is there any further discussion? All right, clerk, will you open the roll on 518? All right. Clerk, close the roll. That bill passes 21-1. And then we got House Bill 519.
Mr. Chairman, I move adoption of the amendments to House Bill 519.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. All right, House Bill 519 is amended as before us. Is there any discussion? All right, hearing none. Clerk, open the roll. All right, clerk, close the roll. That bill passes 21-1.
And Mr. Chairman, one more. I move that my own bill, House Bill 176, be reconsidered so that we can adopt a committee amendment.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All is opposed. All right, House Bill 176 is before the committee.
I move the amendments.
Second.
Is there a second? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All is opposed. Is there any discussion?
Is it single or multiple amendments?
Multiple amendments? Okay.
Move the
Substitute.
No, it's
two-line amendments.
two amendments.
Three.
Okay. All right. All right, clerk, open the roll for House Bill 176. All right, clerk, close the roll. All right, that measure passes 22-0.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. Thank you all for your patience with me. We have one more bill that we pulled out of the block because it has an amendment, which is what jogged my memory. So we have a substitute for House Bill 175. This was Delegate Krizek's bill, which requires, again, that we provide in our residential property disclosure statement an admonition to buyers that the owner makes no representations with respect to whether the property is in a Zone 1 or Zone 2 radon zone as classified by the United States Environmental Protection Agency. And so I would move first the amendment that gets into that, the substitute. And then once we adopt the substitute, I have a line amendment to the substitute.
Okay. All right. There's been a motion. Is there a second to adopt the substitute? All right. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? All right. And thank you. Now we have an amendment. Council, if you can read the amendment.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, on line 100 of the substitute, after Romanet 3, visiting the, strike radon national and insert national radon, so that the that subpart would read, visiting the National Radon Proficiency Program's website.
Delegate Simon, this might be self-explanatory, but do you want to elaborate on that?
Mr. Chairman, this changes the name of the agency from Radon National Proficiency to National Radon Proficiency Program's website. And I think it's just for clarity's sake and make sure folks go to the right website. I move adoption of the amendment.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions or want to challenge the validity of that change? No. All right. All those in favor of the amendment say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right. So I believe we have House Bill 175.
And Mr. Chairman, it was the unanimous recommendation of the committee that this bill be reported on a vote of 8-0. I would so move.
Okay. Is there a second? All right. Any further discussion from members of the committee? All right. Hearing none. Clerk, open the roll. All right. Clerk, close the roll. That bill passes 21-0. All right, thank you very much, Delegate Simon. All right, next up, Delegate Hurst, if you can give us your subcommittee report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, we have two housekeeping items to take up. We'll start with House Bill 866 from Delegate Freitas. He, on his own volition, asked his bill to be stricken from the docket. The subcommittee recommended striking House Bill 866 from the docket by a vote of 7-1, and I so move.
Okay.
Who voted no?
All right, this is a recorded vote, so unless there's any discussion, clerk, please open the roll. All right, close the roll. The motion to strike passes 20-1.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Moving on, House Bill 930, offered by Delegate Coiner. The subcommittee recommended incorporating House Bill 930 into House Bill 967, offered by Delegate Willett, and I so move.
Okay. Second. Is there a second? All right. Any discussion? All right, this is by voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, House Bill 930 is incorporated.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Moving on now to the uncontested report. We will instead do two bills in a block because Delegate Tran's House Bill 1198 has a substitute for the full committee to take a look at. So let's start first with House Bill 1098 offered by Delegate Carr. That is regarding the Secretary of Administration requiring the annual report regarding state employment of individuals with disabilities, moving the date of the report from July 1 to September 1. Also, Delegate Carr has House Bill 1100, restoring powers and duties of the State Inspector General, including oversight of the Office or the Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Services. And so for both of those bills, I would so move that they be reported.
Delegate Hurst, were there any amendments to those?
There were no amendments to either of those bills.
Okay. Does any member of the committee desire to take any of those out of the block? Delegate Carr.
This just came to me at the last moment. We did pass HB 1100 out unanimously. However, we worked on an amendment with higher education because the folks there had expressed some concerns. They wanted to narrow the current blanket exemption to only the larger Tier 3 covered institutions under the Restructuring Act to add more precisely, precisely define the broad reasonable and articulable causes clause. So Justin Brown is here from JLARC to answer any questions if anyone from the committee has any concerns about this
Delegate Carr, I
amendment.
think what we're going to do is we're going to take that out of the block, and we'll go ahead and have that separately. So I think that takes our block down to 1. Anybody want to take the last one out of the block? All right. Any additional comments, questions on House Bill 1098? If not, clerk, open the roll. All right, clerk, close the roll. House Bill 1098 passes on a vote of 21-0. Delegate Hurst.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. With that being said, for Delegate Carr's House Bill 1100, I would imagine then that DLS has an amendment to report. A substitute to report, an amendment in the nature of a substitute.
Yes.
Delegate Carr, why don't you describe again what the substitute does while they're passing out the
There was
the language.
concern
Please.
among higher education folks that we needed to narrow the current blanket exemption to only the larger Tier 3 covered institutions under the Restructuring Act, and to more precisely define the broad, reasonable, and articulable clauses cause. So I think everybody's in agreement on this. This is just affects higher education. And again, Justin Brown, who is with JLARC, is here to answer any questions if members have any questions about that.
Do any members of the committee have questions for Delegate Carr? Okay, hearing none, is there?
Mr. Chairman? Oops.
Delegate Hurst.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Either for the delegate or for the representative from JLARC, I'm just curious, I think a lot of us are familiar with the Level 3 institutions, UVA, VCU, Virginia Tech, one or two others that I can't remember offhand. What is the impetus to want to have them be the ones who would be subject to OSIG complaint investigations, but not all of the other higher education institutions? I just don't understand why non-Level 3 institutions should be exempt from this.
Thank you.
Justin.
Representative from JLARC, if you could come up and speak to that.
Morning, Mr. Chairman. My name is Justin Brown with the Joint Legislative Audit Review Commission. We did a pretty broad review looking at the Office of Inspector General last year, and so the original bill comes out of that review. The reason for the narrowing, quite frankly, of that original provision was the way that the law is currently worded. If there's an allegation involving higher education, they really don't have to work with the Office of Inspector General. And so the original bill had that entire provision struck out. What this does is kind of carve out the ability for the larger institutions who have, frankly, more investigative resources than some of the smaller ones to go ahead for most types of allegations and do those on their own. But then for the remaining kind of non-Level 3 institutions, they would still need to coordinate with the Inspector General just like other agencies. So that's the purpose of the amendment, and that was kind of based on some I think, productive conversations with some of the higher education auditors.
Delegate Hurst, you've got follow-up questions?
Sure, yes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So obviously it came before my subcommittee, so I apologize for not knowing this off the top of my head. So you're saying that when we had recommended this out of sub, that we wouldn't have higher education institutions included?
The way it's a little, it's kind of reversed. The way the law is now, higher education has a fairly broad exemption. What the original bill did was strike that entire broad exemption. This amendment kind of makes it so that, and exemption is probably the wrong word. This amendment makes it so that the larger ones can kind of investigate things directly, higher education institutions, where the smaller ones will still need to coordinate more closely with the Office of Inspector General. So it's the original kind of exemption was in the law to begin with, not even part of the bill, if that makes sense.
I think,
Delegate Carr.
Mr. Chairman, I think part of this is that the higher education the Tier 3, they obviously have more resources, so they can do that for more investigative, and they have auditing services and so forth that some of the other institutions do not have. So this was an effort to realize their resources and accommodate to their concerns.
Delegate Hurst, given that this came out of your subcommittee and not meaning any harm to the bill or making any judgment on the amendment, if you would feel more comfortable having this be passed by for the day, I think that would be probably a friendly motion.
And I would so move, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, is there a second? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, all those opposed, that's passed by for the day. Delegate Hurst.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sorry about that, but want to make sure that we get this right. Moving on now to House Bill 1198, offered by Delegate Tran. The patron has requested an amendment in the nature of a substitute, and it would be great if Ashley and Brooks could distribute that. I am more than able to explain the substitute for Delegate Tran unless she would like to do it. I'm getting the indication she doesn't mind. So it's a technical amendment for the full General Laws Committee today to look at. I would direct all of us to look at lines 38 to 40. The reason for the technical change is, again, we're trying to true up federal law to what we have in this code section with the Virginia Board of Workforce Development. The federal law does not have a requirement for a specific number of members on the state board, and so this amendment from lines 38 to 40 would just say that non-legislative citizen members representing businesses in the Commonwealth, the total number of whom shall constitute a majority of the members of the board, making it so that we don't prescribe a specific number. With that, Mr. Chairman, I would move to adopt as amended. I would move to adopt the substitute.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All right, is there any questions on the substitute from the committee? All right, hearing none, all those say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, we have House Bill 1198, amended the nature of a substitute before us. Does any member of the committee have additional questions on the full measure? Okay, hearing none, is there a motion?
Move to report.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, go ahead and vote on the electronic voting machine. All right, close the roll. 1198 passes on a vote of 22 to 0. All right, thank you. Delegate Hurst.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Moving on to House Bill 932, offered by Delegate Simonds. She eloquently stated to us in subcommittee that there is a removal of certification requirement in her bill for natural gas automobile mechanics and technicians. DPOR testified that it has been several years, 6 years as I recall, since anybody had the option to become a regulant for natural gas automobile mechanics and technicians. Currently, there are no regulants and there are no pending applications, and so this would remove the certification requirement for that individual profession, which seems antiquated at this time. The subcommittee recommended reporting the bill by a 7-to-1 vote, and I so move.
All right. Let's see, were there any amendments?
No amendments, Mr. Chairman.
All right, very good. I would note that this is a reduction in the number of regulatory requirements in the Code of Virginia. Do any committee members have comments on House Bill 932? Okay, hearing none. Clerk, open the roll. All right, clerk, close the roll. That bill reports on a 20 to 2 vote. Delegate Hurst.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The final bill in this subcommittee report is House Bill 967, offered by Delegate Willett, with the incorporation of House Bill 960 by Delegate Coiner. This bill would help our active duty military service members and those who are recently coming from a military transfer to the Commonwealth after active duty. It would extend credentialing issuances to the Commonwealth of Virginia if those individual spouses have proper credentials from another state. The substitute includes not just active duty, but also those military veterans within 1 year. So not all military veterans, but those who are seeking transfer back to the Commonwealth because they would love to live in the Commonwealth within a year after leaving their active duty status. The subcommittee recommended reporting the bill with a substitute by a 7-to-1 vote, and I would so move us to report the bill, report the substitute.
Okay.
Oh, I would move first to adopt the committee substitute.
There's a motion on the substitute. All right, all those in favor of adopting the substitute, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed. All right, we have House Bill 967 as a substitute before us. Do any members of the committee have any comments or questions for the patron on this bill? All right, hearing none, clerk open the roll. All right, clerk close the roll. Mysteriously, this person's first bill passes out on a vote of 21 to 1. To 1. All right. It is. All right. Thank you very much, Chairman Hurst.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It has been a challenge to work with the delegate from Fairfax on some of these bills, but nevertheless, we've done the business of the people of the Commonwealth.
All right, that completes our business.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Delegate Knight.
Mr. Chairman, I don't know what the proper posture is. I've got a question on House Bill 1342, and I don't mind asking the question. If you want me to move to have voted on the prevailing side, I will. But so I don't mind asking the question. Would it be okay to do it that way, or do you want me to get it properly before you?
So that's Delegate Askew's.
Yes, sir.
Yes, go ahead and ask the question.
Okay,
We can decide
thank
what
you.
else to do.
I read this bill, and, it said all about lead, and I understand about copper pipe that has lead joints in it, and people wouldn't know that. And then they had a substitute, and I didn't hear it mentioned, and it may have been, I may have missed it, but we're talking about defective drywall in there, and I didn't recall that being mentioned. I asked a couple of seatmates, they didn't recall it either. But I don't know if he did, but I want to make sure that we understand that, the original bill had lead in the pipes, and now we've got what some of us may say defective drywall. We know we had a big concern with Chinese drywall, and I want to make sure that we're all clear on that, because to the subcommittee chairman, I didn't hear you say that. I thought I was paying attention.
Delegate Simon.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, and my sort of, I guess, frustration or flustering, being with trying to get my amendments right, I may have said it too quickly. I did think I said that what the substitute did was originally we had a lead pipe disclosure that was drawn to the same section as these affirmative disclosures, including the Chinese drywall. What it did was it got rid of both of those and did the lead-based paint is the in the buyer beware disclosure. The testimony we heard at the subcommittee from the Realtor Association, some others, was that the Chinese drywall disclosure, the issue that disclosure was meant to correct has largely been corrected. That it's mostly all been cleaned up, and they didn't feel there was a necessity to have that anymore. So while we were moving the lead pipe disclosure out of that part of the disclosure code into the buyer beware disclosure, they thought it would be a good idea to go ahead and clean that up and get the Chinese drywall disclosure out as well. So that's what we heard. I would say, though, as a certainly, if you want to revisit that as a floor amendment or something, unfortunately, I think because of my mistake, we had already reconsidered that bill, so I don't know that we could reconsider it again. But if the gentleman has some concerns about that aspect of it, I'd be happy to work with you on that before we get to the floor.
Mr. Chairman,
Delegate Knight.
yes, sir. I just wanted to heighten awareness of it. I appreciate the subcommittee's explanation on that. And, if I just wanted to make sure everyone knew what we were voting on, so I appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you very much. Any other business to come before the committee? All right, I know we have our two subcommittees that are meeting directly after this. I think they got some pretty robust dockets. So anyways, with that, we will go ahead and call for a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor? All right, we are adjourned. Thank you.